Okay, let's talk about the assets and the object properties or attribute that are here. Sometimes they are all open, okay? And you see, ooh, we have lots of sitting there, but you can collapse them. So we have two sitting. When you select the object from the scene, you can just change the name, position, rotation, and scale it. That you can use all of these tools. But if you select the object from here, or even you have a character here, drag and drop the character here is not important. If you select it here, you see all of the settings, important setting about the object here, and at brain box, you can add some things. I will be explaining more. If you select the object, or if you double click on them, we have a start and 3D model option. Double click on them, you can go to the node base system of that object. It is a start, means everything, the game will be a start. It's created 3D model. The 3D model, you can see the 3D model is the box here. You can change the name of that. You can assign any texture from a sprite editor. It's very easy. If you have, for example, this. For example, my logo. Drag and drop it there as an image, and you can save it. Now we have a texture. You can see we have simple texture here. Now you can see we have a problem about the texture. You can make it two-sided to see all of the textures. Okay, let's go to 3D world, and you can see because it is a PNG, you can see something like that. But if you go here or select it there, you can see this is a 3D model. Again, you can assign the texture or delete the texture there. Or go into the sprite and bring a simple grass texture on object. So you can insert your texture. I will explain how to import your own 3D model on your build box. Or you can change the scale, size of your texture, you can offset it, change the position of the let's bring some texture. I think it's good. Yeah, you can see better. It's a texture. You can change the scale of that. You can add any number that. You can offset it from 5 in this position, 10 on this position, because it is a tile. You cannot see it. But I can make it the 5, 5. Now I think you can see. You can offset it any direction that you want. The texture offset. You can change the overall color of that. You can change the overall. If you want to see the color of your own texture, you have to make it completely white, that you can see your original texture above the color. This is a mesh. Mesh. You can insert your other 3D model instead of, for example, you want to change the box to other 3D shape. You can directly change the shape from here. It's very important. You can access 3D model and start sitting here, or you can double click going to the graph or node based system. It's in start. It means it's the object create, and we have some. You can change the name of this node here. The physics of this object is very important. I will be explain what's different between static, dynamic, and kinematic, and so other settings. And after that, it's create the start game, and we have an 3D model, so you can change the mesh. If you copy lots of this object, and you can see we have 5 of this object. If you want to change, if you want to replace them to lots of other objects, you can go to the mind map or node based system of here, and from the mesh you can select it, and you can insert any mesh here. Simply with drag and drop. Or you can, for example, replace them with cube. And then go back to the reward. You can see all of the objects because we copied this one object. If you want to bring another cube, you have to drag and drop another cube from 3D shape to see. We have cube, for example, cube number 2. It's different mm, it's, it's different. Cube number 1, cube number 2. We have one of them. You can see this is in cube number 2. Changing the name of here. For changing the name of that, you have to change this name. Cube number 2. If you selected that, we have cube number 2, and this is an parent, is a child. For example, you can copy it at any time that you want, and you can see it. Okay, so if you select object from here, you have 3D model. You can add your texture after color, and you can see that you can change the mesh, 3D mesh of the object. Material is the default, or you can make it shadeless. You can see all of this, or you can change the specular intensity of that if you have changing the lighting, the specular hardness if you want. And important thing is this. If you select this object and change, for example, a rotation and number, all of the objects that are copied change the position. This is overall position. This is the position of the parent actually object, because we copy just this object. If you select one of these objects, you can change the rotation of them individually. But if you want to change the rotation of all objects that we are copy, you have to select it, and from here you can position, rotation, and scale. So it's very important, because maybe you copy a lots of object in your scene and you want to change the position, rotation, and scale of them at once, at one time. You can use this. So this is very different between the position, rotation, and scale. This is individual, and if you select it, this is all objects in the scene that you copy. Okay, and the cast shadow, receive shadow, I've explained it before. If you insert some object that has a problem, if you, for example, insert a plane and you can go, and if you go back of that plane and you cannot see that, make sure that to shaded is turned on. And that's it. If you select the object, you can double click and go into the start or 3D model. It is a 3D model. And we don't have anything else, but a lot of thing is in the start. In a start, you can define object are static or kinematic or dynamic. For better understanding that, we are going to insert this object, this game, that you can download it from here. Okay, this is our scene, and it's very simple pool. We can yeah, I change the view to the landscape. For doing that, you can go to the file, project settings, and change it to the landscape, between landscape and portrait. If you play, it's a very simple image, sliding shot. You can play it, you can drag and drop, and boom. You can see all of these objects are dynamic, and I want to explain what is different between kinematic, dynamic, and other. Okay, this is our main object. You can scale it or anything that you want. You can scale it, for example. Okay, dynamic, it means if you set the object, if you you can close 3D model, start. If you set to the none, it does not have anything. Just it is an object that you can see in a scene. It does not interact with other object. It does not fall because of the gravity, and nothing. For that, I want to go to the mind map, and I don't want this UI. I just want to directly go to 3D world. I explained it before. If you play, it's directly going to the our game, and you don't need to play in game. That's nice. And all of the setting will turn on. We don't have anything. But if you set to dynamic, it's dynamically bouncing and going to affected gravity to that. You can see that you can move, boom, and the gravity and gravity and everything other forces will be affected to that. For example, you drag and drop, boom, and you can see that it's falls because of gravity and other dynamics object. This is not dynamic, simple. If you set it to the static, all of the walls, all of the things are static. It's staying in position, don't move, and you cannot move it by other force or anything. They are not move at all, and they are staying in position. But it has a collision with other objects. You can see, boom. It's like a wall or other things. And the kinematic is exactly like the dynamic, but it has a advantage. For example, I want to add a movement to my object. Okay, I want to add movement to my object. First, I set it to dynamic. It has a dynamic. And close that. And from the add brain box, I want to simple add a slide move. Just click and it's automatically add a slide move to that. If you play your game, if you touch your object, you can see it's dynamically move very crazy because it's in a dynamic. But if you for such these things, if you set your physics to kinematic, you have better control. It's dynamically you can collide with other objects, but it has better control to your object. It does not fall because of gravity. You can see, but you can move your object very freely. It is completely dynamic. Nice. It's fall because the collision of the wall are different. You can just doing that. You can see you can have nice control to your object and you can move on all direction. So this is another benefit of the kinematic. But if you make it above, because it's the kinematic, it does not fall because of the gravity. This is another advantage. And you can move it in any direction, but in this height. So this is another difference between kinematic and dynamic. Make it dynamic. Okay. Affected asset. It means in which asset it will be collide effect. If I bring it down, for example, if I insert a cylinder here and select that here, make it dynamic. Yeah. Let's make it dynamic. This is my cylinder. I can save it CC, for example. It's nice. Or another cube. Or I insert another cube. BB. It's not important. Okay. If you go to your sphere, that is our, for example, character here. Oh, I forget to change collision group. Collision group, it's very important. For example, this is our character, and you have to specify to the software which collision group is that. It's a character that you can control it because it's very important. In other nodes, in other environment of the object game, we can understand this because it's very important. You have to tell the software which scenario do you want to give to your object. It's character, it's enemy, defeating the character, it's a platform like this wall and this. For example, in this game, if you select it, you can see unfortunately it's a collision group, it's set it to none. It's not very important in this case. For example, for sliding, again none. But it's better to give the software which scenario do you want to character, enemy, or platform. Because in this game, all of this, you can see all of this sphere are character. And you can see you can drag and drop all of them. For example, drag and drop these. You can see. Because they are all character. They are they say, okay, they are not character, they're all character. You can set it to none if you want, but if you want, you can I set it to, for example, character, because in some cases you have not add group, because if you set it to there, we have in other software we have a lot of node that look at this. It's an enemy platform order. So this is an collision group that you have to assign. Affected asset, because of the affected asset, you can see if you open that, there have category of character, category of enemy, category of platform, category of coin. There are coin, there are reward, we're collecting the coin, or the pass, you pass it, because of this category of the software, you have to tell the software, for example, I want to affect this object only. I set it to another group, my group, for example, you can set it. Because you see in this software, these are the category, and after this line, these are all object in a group. For example, I want this character of here, you can select it here, this character here, be careful about the settings. Which object do you select? Sometimes you are not understanding and select, for example, select this, and you can see all of the settings are the same, and accidentally change other setting. If you select a sphere affected asset, I want to say, a sphere, please affect just my CC, my cylinder. Affect just cylinder. It means if if you can see it's fall down, because it does not affected and collision with the platform, just affected with this cylinder. So for seeing that, another advantage of the kinematic is come here. You can set it to the kinematic. It does not fall, but you can move it, but it collide to the other object. In some cases, kinematic is nice. And you can see it does not affect that ball. It does not, it just affect that cylinder, not cube or not other object. Okay, this is affected asset. Be careful about which selection. You can select it to the all, or character category, enemy category, platform category. Because of that, I prefer to change. It's not very important, but it's categorize your work. Okay, you can tell that, or you can choose a specific object from here. These are category, all character, all enemy, all platform, or one by one, all of this object here. Not all of this object, the main object here. For example, from the sphere we have one, from the cube we have one, from the sliding stock we have 4. We have this cube 4 of them, but it just tells the main name of there. Friction. I delete all of them just from the scene. Friction. You can select the sliding shots and close the 3D model, and this is friction. If you the friction between the objects, if you reduce number the friction to 0, you have no friction between the platform and the object. And if you shooting that, you can see they're not stopping, going because we have no friction. But if you have almost one friction, this means 100%. If you hit, boom, you can see they are stopping, because we have a lots of friction between our balls and the platform. So be careful of the friction. Bounce. If you have no bounce, and it's bouncing between object and hitting between the object. You can see we have selected this and click and drag, and boom. You can see we don't have bounce, just there suddenly stop. But if have 100% bounce, we have a lots of bounce, and you can see they are bouncing to each other, bouncing to each other. But you can look at this, it's stop because of friction. They are bouncing to each other. So if you want, we can make it bouncy any number. I think no, 2. Yeah, you can add the higher number, type higher number here, I think. And we have more bounce. Yeah, you can see we have more power and bounce. You can see mass. For understanding the mass, I open this bridge link. I will be explain how to link object together, but see this to tell the mass. If I select, this is our bridge that I use linked, I will be explaining it. You can add a link selected here. I linked all of this, and if you select this object from here to bring its settings, affected all, you can see we have mass. It's how heavy your object is. For example, if I mass a lower number here, you can see it fall down and it does not affect very much this bridge. But if you increase the number of the mass, we have more heavy and we have more bend of this bridge. You can see that. If you select the object and we mass a very heavy, you can see the difference between a light or heavy object. Play. Boom, you can see it's affected more. It's because it's more heavy object. It's heavier object. It's a heavier object. This is mass, and you can play with that. Okay. Position factor and a rotation factor is actually a limiter. For example, if I go into my pool again, this is my pool, and I bring my view because this is camera view of here. You can make the camera view that is exporting something like that, or maybe something like that, and exit from the camera, and we bring the object here. And for moving that, we select that and add a brain. We set a slider move. Okay, the position and the rotation factor are 1, 1, 1. It means they can move in any direction in X, Y, and Z, or rotation. For better understanding that, I will explain to another game. But if you make it a 0, it's a 1 or 0. For example, it's limit the position factor in X. Your object does not go to the X direction, limited that. But for such this slide movement, it does not work. You have to use another brain box or another move that you can limit it. So I will be explaining more in project. That's simple. There are limiter. There are 0 and 1. There are limiter. Another important thing is collision shape. It's very interesting, important. What is the collision shape? For seeing the collision shape of your object, you have to turn on this sphere from here, collision shape. And after that, we are in a collision shape. If you select any object, the collision shape of that object will be selected, and then you can move it. This is a collision shape. The software understands this shape and collide with other objects. So this collision shape is sphere, this collision shape is cylindrical, this collision shape is capsule, this collision shape is hull. It means it just create a bounding box of the object. And it's very interesting. You can select it, for example, in a sphere here, and then you can change the collision shape of the object. It's very interesting. You can move the collision shape anywhere. You can move it, you can rotate it. It's very interesting. And this is a collision shape object. It's bigger than the object. You can, and the software understands this collision shape. For better understanding that, I insert a simple 3D model on a scene. It's very simple. Drag and drop it. This is my project file, and I'll drag and drop this as an object. Boom, and this is our 3D. For better understanding the collision shape, you can see it does not have any collision shape. You can turn it off. You can see, this axis is here. You have to make it correct in your 3D object. This is an axis of that. Okay. Let's go to double click and go to node map. You can start. You can set it to, if you set it to the none, it's nothing. Make it to the dynamic, and all of the setting will be turned on. We have lots of other settings here. Always active means if the software for making your game optimize the character and the object that does not have any movement, and you for a long time you let them to and don't touch them, it will be turn them off, and it cause some problem. If for important character, important object, tell the software, please always them active, please them always active. Or shape always visible. These are for collision shape. If you turn it on, always the collision shape of the object shown in your scene. For example, going to the 3D world, collision shape of this, for example, make it a collision shape. You can see the collision shape of this object. And if you want, if you turn it off, all of the collision shape will be turned off. If you select this, you can tell the software, for better understanding, you can close all of them, because it has a lots of things attached to that 3D model. I think you have to double click and select the start of that and tell always visible. And then you can see the collision shape of them is always visible. But go to this object, it's in the start, nice. And the collision shape of that, you can see this object does not cube, it's not a sphere, it's not cylindrical, capsule, or hull. You can make it a hull. Okay, make it a hull object. It means we can close that. Collision shape, it does not have any collision shape. You have to it's create actually bounding box of that object, not holes and something like that. It's just, if you play, it's not, because you have to define a shape to that. If you select a collision to the hull, you have to define which hull, which shape do you want to select it. Select it, and I select, for example, shape of this. And now you can see this is our collision shape. You have to select it at this part. And if you play, it's just fall down like a cube, because I select the hull to that. Boom. Oh, if I selected that, make sure that's the dynamic. Affected asset is a non-affected asset to the all. And collision mesh is in a just cube. And that's it. The hull does not calculate the whole shape like this. Just play, and boom, you can see it acts like a cube, and it's not good. Okay, thinking like this, moving the camera, and we want to calculate exactly all of these holes and shapes. So if you select your object, going double click to that, not in a mesh, this is our mesh. You can change the color of that at any color that you want. Make it red. Going to the start, and instead of making to the hull, make it to the mesh. And from the here, you can close it. From the here, you can assign your exactly mesh that you inserted here. We have lots of objects that are seen, and this is our imported mesh. You can tell the software, okay, give my collision shape exactly like my mesh. You can select your mesh inserted here. Boom. This is our collision shape. Going back to the object, turn on the collision shape, and it is very bigger than your object. You can select it, but can simply uniformly scale it to fit your object. Nice. And now our collision shape is exactly like our object shape. Nice. And then you can turn on the collision shape. So you can turn on the collision shape, and then you can rotate, you can move your collision shapes. And then if you start, it's act correctly. Nice. Or let's play with that. Boom. Now we can see it's act correctly and rotate nicely. So you learn how to change the collision shape of your object in the mesh. You insert your mesh in an object in your build box, and then you can tell the software, please give exactly my mesh shape to our collision shape, not sphere, not, for example, something like that. Let's bring a sphere, and you can make it higher, but because it is a shape, you cannot make it. It's better to make it to the shape again. Or if you want, you can make it the whole and assign cube to that, for example, again. Okay, we are because we changing the mesh, you can change the size of that, scaling that, and we cannot bring it back because we make it very, very small. Okay, and be careful of the collision shape like this because it calculates lots of resources on your PC. Okay, come back to your double click, or you can assign the mesh from here. So also it's then a start, and position, rotation, scale of here is a position, rotation, scale of your collision shape. Or you can set the software always show that not in preview, in my view 3D world. If you go to the simple, you can see it's always showing your collision mesh. You can always see that. Okay, this is our start. We explain all of this important setting. This is a mesh. It has a lot of little mesh, but if you go to the 3D world selected here, we have a lot of because they are imported mesh. You don't have a other setting because they are imported mesh. In a 3D model, yes, this is an. If you go here, it isn't a mesh number 1. You imported mesh. The object of the build box, for example, this object has 3D model with other settings that you can define it there. So we explain all of the settings. Yeah. Okay.